Hi, Dan Halsey here. Just wanted to give you a short tour of the ecological function scoring sheet that we have on Moodle and working for the class. This is a very basic and rudimentary calculation sheet so that we can all have a similar calculation to get to that ecological function points and also a diversity quotient. There are many more complex ways of doing this, many algorithms for doing this because, of course, diversity can be measured in many ways, from trophic levels to genetic material, variations, cultivars, and the purposes of those plants on the landscape. So in this case, we have a simple one just for our class and generally speaking to kind of gauge things and see how we compare. So you'll see the top 15 lines, 16 lines here, 15 actually plants on here at the top of the page. I've pasted those in and added a quantity on the left column, and I believe that the A column is the plant number. So my quantities are all totaled up at the bottom, line 19, for 177 plants. I put that down, or it copies down to here in the green area, and then I also subtract from that the plants that are not harvested, the daffodil, pale coneflower, iris, and comfrey. Generally speaking, we're not harvesting those for any human use. So those are taken out, and that's the second line down here, basically 177 minus 81. 96 are total harvestable plants within this design. The human uses, basically then 54% of the plants have a human use. They have some kind of harvest, so that's the calculation in the next line. The number of species are 15. 15 different species of plants going in here, and then we have 8%, which is the number of plants divided by the number of species. So 8% is really, we have an 8% diversity quotient, very simplistic and rudimentary calculation there. Based on the number of plants, we have an 8% diversity. Now, as you can imagine, there is a sweet number to this, a sweet spot, because if you had 100% diversity, every plant would be different. For all the totals that you have, you had 177 plants, you'd have 177 different species. So we're not looking for absolute total diversity, never want to do that. And then having anything close to 1% or 2% means that you don't have very much diversity at all. So you can kind of see how quickly that number goes up, but it's not going up too high in the area for diversity. But again, that's not telling us what we need to do. It's just giving us a number for comparison. After that, we have the total number of ecological functions, and that's column H here. Just the total number of functions coming from the plants, which is 48. And then we have the ecological function points, which is where we have the big numbers, and that is the number of plants times the spread of the plant times the points that you have for functions. So in this case, we have 5 dill plants here with the spread of 18 inches. It has 2 functions, and then multiplying that out gives you basically 180 points. And the comfrey is the same way. It actually has 7 functions times the spread of 48 times 10 plants. So that's why comfrey has about 3,300 points. So you can see we go from 180 to 3,300 very quickly and exponentially based on the number of plants we have, the spread of the plant, and the ecological functions that it provides. So at this point, we have 8,030 points here for ecological functions based upon what we're being provided for in this area by these plants. Again, marginally scientific, but at least it's a common calculation that we can use to compare the lists and see what the differences are and then investigate why those differences exist. You could also do this with nitrogen fixing plants, dynamic accumulating plants, those kinds of things. You can make all sorts of calculations with this to see how we compare in plants. Right now, all I'd like to see on this is just your total number of plants, those that are harvestable, percentage of harvest plants, how many species you have in there. Percentage of plants is your diversity of plants based from the total. The total number of ecological functions provided, and then the 8,000 or so whatever plants you might have as far as the ecological function points. So that's what this calculation is all about. Be careful of your cells and the math that's going into those cells, because as you can know, those will probably might change, and it's good to check your math on that. So let's see how many points we have in our designs based on our plant lists and how many plants you're picking in the area. By the way, this is one thing to just start with. It's not due until the end of the semester because you actually don't know how many plants, but this will be delivered in your package with your project, with all your plant lists and your final plant count, and then finding out what your diversity function is, or excuse me, diversity quotient and your ecological function points are. Thanks a lot. We'll see you in class.